We took it all. We brought them to our land. An endless night, ember hot and icy cold. The rage of the earth. We made this curse. Carved it in the blood on our backs. We did not see. We could not, but she did. And in the end...
What will I become?
Senua's Saga. Hellblade 2.
Play it now with Game Pass.
Welcome to the Flash Finds Podcast, the world's fastest podcast where we explore how Facebook can help you with the stuff you're into. I'm Emma Rogue, joined by Nathan the Cat Lady, a Facebook creator. So Nathan, if you're into pets, what kind of stuff can you find on Facebook?
Well, I make reels about useful tips for pet owners. For instance, cats don't like still water, so all of my cats have cat fountains.
Oh my gosh, that's so cute. What a great episode. See you next time on the Flash Finds Podcast, all about discovering the stuff on Facebook you care about. Bye.
Today on the Film and Whiskey Podcast, we'll be engaging in our time-honored tradition of throwing movies into the fiery furnace.
Then we'll be trying 3 whiskeys from our friends at Barrell Craft Spirits.
This is the Film and Whiskey Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome into the Film and Whiskey Podcast. I'm Bob Book.
I'm Brad G.
And it is freaking bracket time, Brad
Wah,
G.
wah, wah, wah. Here we are. Season 7.
The most wonderful time of the year.
It really is. And it's coinciding with holiday season.
Yeah,
I'm
pretty
kind of
much.
excited.
Dude, I'm so pumped. If this is your first time listening to a Film and Whiskey Bracket Challenge episode, welcome in. You're in for a treat. Because this is how this is going to go. It's the end of season 7. Brad and I are feeling a little loosey-goosey. It's 8:30 p.m., which is well past our bedtime as old farts.
Yes, sir.
I'm not only drinking whiskey tonight, Brad, I am like sipping on a beer while we do this. A celebratory end of season ale.
It's a great way to fresh up your palate.
Mm-hmm. I just love when you have a whiskey podcast, the way that you like break tradition is like, I'm going to have a beer tonight.
Ooh.
It's like my special occasion alcohol.
It's true, man. I have so much whiskey in the house that I feel bad buying almost any alcohol, but that leads to a dearth of beer in my life. And every once in a while, I'll just look at Haley and be like, babe, I'm going to buy a 6-pack.
Yep.
And she's like, do you really need more alcohol in the house? And I'm like, that's a great question. And the answer is yes. Yes, I do. Thanks for asking.
Well, we could never get enough alcohol on this podcast, apparently, because in addition to my beer, we are trying 3 whiskeys today from our friends at Barrell Craft Spirits. We have said time and time again that among all whiskey producers, Barrell might be our favorite brand out there, Brad. I've never had a whiskey from them that I haven't liked, and that's really saying something.
Yeah, 100%. Barrell is a blender of whiskeys. I think we are trying a 5-year blend from them today. Now, Bob, do you know if that's their whiskey or if it's still going to be a blend?
Yeah, so the first one we're going to be trying today, Brad, is their newest release, which they call Barrell Foundation Bourbon. Like you said, this is a 5-year age-stated bourbon. It is a blend of straight bourbon whiskeys. It's sourced whiskey that Barrell blends. It's their standard process. But I think what they're intending with this specific label is for this to be kind of their baseline offering moving forward. It's priced, I think, a little bit lower than most of their whiskeys are, which tend to be kind of in the premium range. You know, you'll see Barrell stuff in like the $70, $80, $90 range. Don't quote me on this. I want to say this is only going to sell for like $50, $55.
The Barrell lawyers are on their way, Bob.
How dare you undercut our sales here? But yeah, I'm really excited for them to have a product like this, Brad. And they sent us some nice little cards with all the info we need on it. Here's the blend. It's Kentucky bourbon that's 8 years old. It's Indiana bourbon that is 5, 6, and 9 years old. There's Tennessee bourbon that's 8 years old. There's bourbon from Maryland that's 5 and 6 years old.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a high rye mash bill in the blend. And while we sip on this one, Brad, let's break down a little bit what today's episode is going to look like. So I'm pouring this foundation out in my glass right now, and I've been talking too long. So can you explain to our listeners what the bracket challenge looks like?
Yeah, so we take the 32 films that we have just reviewed and place them in a March Madness style bracket. We compile the rankings by Bob and I each take the list of 32 movies, and without looking at our scores we gave them, the IMDb scores, anything, we just kind of we follow the feelings of our heart. We go by our gut. And we rank them 1 through 32. We take those two lists. And do we take a IMDb list?
So the third list that we take is just what's the highest based on the rating we gave it in the episode. So like at the end of the season, we'll have, we had like 4 movies that scored a 10. And if there needs to be a tiebreaker, I'll tie break it with the IMDb score. So like if there's 3 movies that are tied at a 9.5, whatever has the highest IMDb score gets the nod there. So we take our, by the heart lists and we kind of moderate them by what we felt in the moment. And what that ends up doing, Brad, is, we get a nice little average that gets all of us angry. Like, I think every time I see the final list of what the seeds are going to be, I'm like, this makes no sense. And that's how I know that it's a good list.
Exactly. It's like a good compromise. Nobody's happy.
So yeah, we take that final list where we combine all 3 of our rankings, and that provides the seeding for our 32 seed bracket. Now, we'll walk through each of the matchups in this bracket. So we've got 32 movies squaring off against each other. The criteria is that when you go head-to-head in a matchup, the loser is the movie that gets thrown into the fiery abyss, never to be seen or heard from again. And so this is serious business, Brad. This is not just a game that we play while we drink. You have to really think about, what would the world be like without this piece of art in it?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we've done 6 seasons. So that's 192 films. And of those 192 films, we are not allowed to watch 186 of them.
Not only are we not allowed to watch them, they're just eradicated from the face of the earth.
I don't even remember them.
No, and that's the operative assumption here. So, Brad, before we dive into the bracket, let's try this first whiskey. I've got this Barrell Foundation poured out in my glass. I am itching to get into this. What are you picking up on the nose here?
Dude, this is beautiful. Like, it's just a really nice, warm caramel drizzle with a little bit of orange slice. It almost has a bit of a marshmallow feel for me. I think the longer I've let it sit in my glass, the more I kind of get a really nice brown sugar, vanilla, classic bourbon feel, but with enough nuance to it to say that this is a really nice nose.
Yeah. I think the thing that I've learned about high rye bourbons is that I either want it to smell really rye forward, like tons of dill and that almost like sour rye note, or I want it to be almost indistinguishable from like a wheated bourbon. Like, it's either needs to be really bold rye or really soft rye. And for me, this one is like, if you put this in front of me and said this was a wheated bourbon, I probably would have believed you. It's very soft. There's a lot of wood character here, really oaky, but the rye is not aggressive at all. This is clocking in at 100 proof. So it's been kind of nicely moderated. Brad, I'm going to take my sip here, but I could tell that you've already had yours. What are your tasting notes?
Incredible. Yeah, Bob, this is just an incredible whiskey. I think that a lot of the nosing notes carry through. It gets a little bit citrusy for me. The marshmallow comes through really strong on the palate. It's got a nice sugary sweetness to it. The brown sugar is there. It gets a tiny bit oaky throughout. There's some black pepper. I am a big fan of this. The spices that are here are just enough to let you know they're present, but not enough to overwhelm the really rich flavors elsewhere.
This is interesting for me because this is the first barrel product I've ever had that if you asked me like in the blind, what brand do you think this is from? I don't think Barrell would even come up on my radar here. Like, It's so oaky that it's like, I've never had a barrel product this oaky before. And again, I will still say, I've never had a product from Barrell that I didn't like, including this one. But this is much more in the realm of like, if you are a Buffalo Trace fan, or even if you're like an Elijah Craig toasted barrel fan, I think this is like right up your alley. the flavor really does explode on your tongue, but you have to be in the mood for a really heavily oaky, almost that toasted oak, kind of bitter herbal flavor. Brad, I'm super excited to get into the last two that we have for the day, but we're going to get there in a minute because it is time to dive into our bracket. Are you ready?
Dude, I was born for this. Like, the fact that you have invited me onto this podcast, 4 or 5 years ago at this point? And each and every season, every 32 weeks, I get an opportunity to crush your hopes and dreams.
I was going to say, I have never...
It's such a gift.
Except for the Cleveland Browns. I don't know that there is an entity in my life that I invite to hurt me this much.
Yeah.
Just you.
Yeah.
You are my Cleveland Browns.
You're welcome, man. I mean, I literally preached this morning on how human suffering is not necessarily evil and that actually like good can come from suffering. And I'll next time I preach on it, I will use this as an example.
When we enter into this, Brad, and we're about to do it now, do you view us as like in competition with each other, or are we like both in pursuit of the truth? Are we both working toward the same goal?
Well, I'm in pursuit of the truth, and my truth is that your movie picks are bad.
All right, so when we come to a logjam, inevitably, what we will do is we will flip the coin of destiny, which I have foolishly always allowed Brad to flip. However, we do now have video capabilities when we record, so I can watch him at least flip it and then lie to me about what he sees off camera. So, Brad will... I
love that it's 2023 and we just now have video capabilities.
We're working our way up in the world, man. Brad will flip the coin when there is a stalemate. That will make the choice as to what moves on. Brad, it is time to get into the Season 7 bracket.
Bob, starting in our northwest quadrant, which we probably should name these. I think we talked about that last week.
We did, and we were like, we're totally going to do that for Season 7, and then, here we are.
Yeah, we're going to call this the cruise bracket.
You did that last year. That was your...
Yeah. I'm well aware, Bob.
The Tom Cruise bracket. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just going with tradition.
Yep.
In the Tom Cruise area of the bracket, we have our number 1 overall seed, Ikiru, versus our number 32 seed, Notorious.
All right, now I think these are equally surprising if you had just given us the list of movies at the beginning of the season and said pick your number 1, pick your 32. What do you think it's going to be? I would have never guessed that our overall number 1 seed would be this Japanese movie from over 70 years ago. Probably one of our lowest downloaded episodes of the season. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because when people hear Kurosawa, they're thinking, okay, maybe Rashomon, maybe Seven Samurai.
Rashman.
Ikiru just seemed to really work for you, Brad. I think this might have been your number 1 seed overall in your heartfelt rankings.
Yeah, it sure was. I absolutely loved Ikiru. It just touched something deep within my soul about the beauty of humanity and how important it is to not be cynical. I think that I've spent probably a solid 30 to 40% of my life in a very cynical state of mind, and it's really tiring. And something like Ikiru just lifts the spirit. And so I think it's worthwhile to watch films that are dedicated to this idea of I'm going to spend my life in service to something greater than my own wants and desires.
The absolute gall of you to have just finished saying that your entire goal here is to crush my hopes and dreams and then be like, you know what, this movie reminds me not to be cynical, but you are the epitome of a hypocrite, sir.
No, I'm not cynical at all. I am so hopeful that I will get to destroy.
All right, so it's going up against Notorious, our 32 seed, which, let's be frank, Brad, it's a movie that didn't work for us, but I don't know that I would flat out call it a bad movie. We didn't really watch any films that I'm that was a poor movie. You know what I mean? It's like a 6.5, 7 out of 10, but
yeah,
if that's the worst thing we watched all season, we did okay.
Yeah, And I'm never going to think about it ever again because it is going into the fiery furnace, my friends.
Yep, no debate here. Ikiru is our first entrant into the round of 16, and that takes us to our next matchup. We're going all Kurosawa, apparently, in this bracket because we have the 16 seed Ran up against the 17 seed Rashomon. And this really sucked for me. And the reason that they're both at 16 and 17 is because I ranked them very highly and Brad ranked them very lowly. And when we scored them out in the middle of the season, they were right in the middle. So this totally makes sense. The problem is that, like, in my personal ranking, Rashomon is my highest ranked movie of the season, Brad.
No.
My highest. You went Ikiru, I went Rashomon. Yeah.
Rashomon?
Yeah.
Out of all the films.
More than anything else. I don't know what it was. When I watched that movie this time around, I was shooketh, as the kids say. I could not get over that movie. And it, like, legit pained me when we got on the horn the next day and you were like, yeah, this didn't work for me at all. And I kind of hated it. And now I don't know if I'm ever going to like Kurosawa.
Yeah.
I was flabbergasted, man.
It was a rough opening. And even, like, to think that, like, a year and a half ago, I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to watch Seven Samurai. And you were like, nah, that's too long. Start with Rashomon. That's the best film to start Kurosawa with. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, I trust you, Bob. You're the expert. And then here we are, where Rashman was hot garbage. Bob, I'll make you a deal here.
Yeah.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah, let's hear it.
I will go back and give Rashomon a second chance.
Mm-hmm.
If you put Ron on to the next round.
I know for a fact that you're just going to keep picking Ikiru to win in the next round, so it doesn't really matter that much. But I'd rather, if Ron's going to go on to the next round, I'd rather it be the result of the Coin of Destiny. I believe in Rashomon, and I'm going to move it on here. And
well, if you believe in Rashomon, then you would think that it would work a second time when I watch it.
Yeah, but, like, why would you're not going to watch it because it's not going to exist anymore.
Yeah,
By our
true.
criteria. Okay, so I'm assuming you're moving Ron onto the second round.
I am.
Right.
Ron was decent. I enjoyed it much more than Rashomon.
I think that they're both masterpieces, so, like, I don't really care. But Rashomon is the one I preferred. So let's friggin' flip the coin. This might be the earliest Coin of Destiny flip we've ever had. It's like on our second pick. Brad, I guess we'll go by seeds here. 16 seed is Ron, so that'll be heads. And Rashomon will be tails. Brad, flip that coin.
Robert, this coin has come up heads.
All right. So,
Ron, moving on to the next round.
All right, so Ron is moving on. I am already, my hopes and dreams are crushed. We're moving to the next matchup, which is the number 9 seed, City Lights, up against the number 24 seed, The Hurt Locker. Now, City Lights, once again, Brad, is a movie that underwhelmed you, and I just don't get it. Like, whatever. However, you weren't really a huge Hurt Locker guy either, so I'm really interested to hear what your pick is here.
This was kind of a tough one because there's definitely moments of Hurt Locker that you're like, oh yeah, Bigelow has a vision and it really works in these like 3 or 4 scenes in that movie. Mm-hmm. City Lights overall, I think overall was a better film, but didn't quite have the highs that Hurt Locker had. Overall, though, I think I am going to go with City Lights.
All right. Listen, man, I know that some of your poor taste is going to catch up to me at some point in this bracket. But, like, thank you for at least moving City Lights on one round. Like, I could die happy now, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, Hurt Locker, I'll say this. The scene of him pulling up that bomb.
Oh, it's great.
Is gorgeous.
It's also, like in the first 3 minutes of the movie.
Yep.
You know, like
it sure is, man. Yeah. So yeah, I'm down with that. City Lights is moving on.
Okay, and that takes us to our last matchup in this region, the number 8 seed, The Prestige, up against the number 25 seed, Shadow of a Doubt. I think that I don't really need to discuss this that much. The Prestige is a much better film than I remember it being. And Shadow of a Doubt is a movie that a lot of critics appreciate, but I think for more historical reasons about Hitchcock's development than about the movie itself.
Yeah.
And The Prestige is just better.
Yeah. I will say this in Shadow of a Doubt's defense. It's way more charming than it has any right to be. There is something about Teresa Wright's performance that's just incredible, and she is wonderful. But she has a really weird relationship with her uncle that if we, as I said in the episode, if we held it up to the book of Leviticus, they would probably be cast into the fiery furnace, and we're going to get rid of Shadow of a Doubt.
Wow. I have never heard anyone defend Leviticus so vehemently, but there you go. We all need a reason to get rid of movies, and Brad found his. That completes that region. Brad, let's move down into our, I guess, Southwest region here, which is going to be called what?
Who do you want to name it after? This is your choice.
I don't know. Who reminds you of the Southwest? This is the Tommy Lee Jones region. I want this to be like the No Country for Old Men, Tommy Lee Jones region.
Are you sure it shouldn't be the Gary Oldman region?
No. All right, we're kicking things off with our number 4 overall seed, Rope, up against the 29 seed, Gran Torino. Gran Torino is a movie, Brad, that I legitimately can't remember where we shook out on that movie, because I go back and forth on was it actually better than I remember, or was it even worse than I remember? Do you know what I mean?
I think the answer is yes.
Yeah. I think it's appropriately ranked at 29 on the year.
So the thing is, when we were reviewing Gran Torino, I believe that we had a guest on. And unfortunately and fortunately, we've been going through, and for our patrons, we've been redoing some of our season 1 episodes. And we had just watched $1 Million Baby. And somehow in the mix of watching those two films, we were 10 minutes into the Gran Torino episode, and I realized that I was giving all my reactions as if I had watched $1 Million Baby, and that's what we were reviewing. Because there was so many things that felt like the same movie that I was like, I don't even know what's going on here. So I'm kind of with you, Bob. I don't remember almost anything about Gran Torino.
All right, give me just 10 seconds here, Brad, I'm shocked at how Rope is number 4, because you seemed slightly cooler on it in our episode. I mean, it's very highly ranked for me, but it's much more highly ranked on your list than I would have expected. When it came time for you to sort these movies by heart, why is Rope rising higher than we would have thought?
Do you remember where I placed it at?
I have it pulled up. Let me see.
I was thinking I put it around the 10 area.
You have it at number 8 on the season.
Oh, 8. I think that at the end of the day, I just love a good theater movie. You know what I mean? The Birdman, or The Unexpected Ignorance of Virtue, whatever that one's called. Movies like that, I'm just there is something about taking theater and putting it on film that I just really enjoy. So I liked Rope. I think you see Hitchcock doing some really interesting things. And if not for the strange, weird Jimmy Stewart ending speech, I think that really is a top tier film. All
right. Rope is moving on into the round of 16. But we have 3 more picks to make here on this side of the bracket, and then we'll try our second whiskey. I think we can go pretty quickly here. I'm assuming that we're in lockstep here, Brad. The number 13 overall seed, the Gold Rush, is going up against the number 20 seed, Dunkirk. Now, the Gold Rush I think that was the highest rated Chaplin movie for you. You really liked the Gold Rush. It is my least favorite of the Chaplin movies that we watched.
Asinine.
Which is fine, because I still think it's better than Dunkirk. Dunkirk is probably my least favorite Christopher Nolan movie, and I'm okay with that. Are you moving the Gold Rush on here?
I am. I will speak in defense of Dunkirk. I truly think it is one of the better World War II films out there. I think it's unique and fun and interesting, and in the cinematic universe of World War II, I think it's just a really great entry. So I'm a big fan of Dunkirk, but I'll never watch it again.
All right, that takes us to the number 12 seed, Seven Samurai. up against the number 21 seed Ben-Hur. Seven Samurai, one of the most highly regarded films of all time. I like it a lot. And I think the more I think about it as an achievement in movie making, the more I respect it. Like, nobody had made a movie like that to that point. And it precedes Ben-Hur by 3 years. And in scope, it is as big as Ben-Hur. It's not my favorite Kurosawa. I don't think it was your favorite Kurosawa. But I think it's leaps and bounds better than Ben-Hur. And I'm interested to hear what you think.
What I think is, does Seven Samurai have a chariot race, Bob? Because I'm pretty sure it doesn't. And that chariot race freaking slaps, bro.
There's no way, Brad, that Seven Samurai is a worse movie overall than Ben-Hur, though.
But would I take the 10 minutes of some of the best, most exciting filmmaking of all time over 7 hours of Seven Samurai?
I don't know, man. That final raid on the village is gripping movie making. It's so good. Did you really move Ben-Hur on here?
No, I moved Seven Samurai.
Oh gosh,
on.
Okay. I was gonna say, I was like, "There's no freaking way, man."
No, I love Ben-Hur. I enjoy the melodrama of the majority of the film, and I will once again say that 10-minute chariot race. Jeez Louise, man! I'm still at the edge of my seat. So please, everyone, go out and watch Ben-Hur. It is worth it.
All right, finally, we have the number 5 seed, Dial M for Murder, up against the 28 seed, Memento, a movie that lots of people who grew up in the early 2000s love, a movie that you and I watched together, which is a rarity, and
Sure is.
And spent most of the runtime saying, like, what the F is this? Like, this is so poorly done. And then, to his credit, Christopher Nolan lands the plane in the final 20 minutes of that movie.
He sure does.
And I remember saying to you, I think I went from like a 4.5 to an 8.5 on this movie. You were lower. You were like, the ending does not a great movie make. And so
Yes.
I think that's partially why it's so far down the list. Also, you really seemed to love Dial M for Murder.
Oh, dude. And once again, I'll say what I said in that episode. Rope was great. Dial M for Murder was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that movie is just delightful and entertaining and gripping. And honestly, at the end of the day, like, the opening few minutes of Dial M for Murder are a little rough. And it never stops from there. The last few minutes of Rope don't land the plane very well. And I think that is more of a detriment to that film than the opening scene is for Dial M for Murder.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm moving M for Murder on.
All right, so am I. I think that's a pretty much a no-brainer on this podcast based on our scores here. So that means that the first half of our round of 16 consists of Ikiru, Ron, City Lights, The Prestige, Rope, The Gold Rush, Seven Samurai, and Dial M for Murder. 3 Kurosawas, 2 Hitchcocks, 2 Chaplins, and a Nolan. Some heavy hitters here, man.
Yeah, it sure is.
All right, listen, it's time to drink whiskey. We've been talking a lot. Let's dive into the next barrel bourbon that we have for today, which is called Tale of Two Islands.
We took it all. We brought them to our land. An endless night, ember hot and icy cold. The rage of the earth. We made this curse. Carved it in the blood on our backs. We did not see. We could not, but she did. And in the end,
What will I become? Senua's Saga. Hellblade 2.
Play it now with Game Pass.
All right, so this next whiskey is called the Barrel Bourbon Cask Finish Series, Tale of Two Islands. Now, apparently, a few years ago, Barrel released a rum that was finished in peated Isla single malt barrels. And they called it the Tale of Two Islands rum. Now, they've taken...
Tell me that doesn't sound incredible.
It does sound... it sounds funky. Like, I don't know, like, on the top of my head, if I would love that. but it sounds interesting.
Yes.
Now, they've taken those barrels that are left over from that process, and then they've now put bourbon into those barrels to finish them. So it is a bourbon finished in Islay Scotch barrels that also held rum. I don't know if that makes any sense, but...
I will say, the one thing about Barrell is that if you become an expert at explaining their finishes, you'll be the coolest whiskey guy in the room. Because they are confusing. And delicious.
Once again, this is a 73% corn, 23% rye, 4% malted barley mash bill. It's clocking in at 118.22 proof. It's 5 years of age. Brad, let's dive into this. What are you picking up on the nose?
Oh, man, dude. So this one, you barely get a hint of smokiness, which is all the smokiness I want. There's not much there. Beyond that, I feel like you get really beautiful notes of vanilla. I get that little hint of cane sugar from the rum influence. It gets almost tropical, like a mango, pineapple type of feel to the nose. And then the longer I sat with it, the more the vanilla became pronounced. And I almost got like a butterscotch cheesecake type of feel. There's a lot going on here, and I am happy.
I've been learning more about rums. I knew next to nothing about rums until the last year or so. And I know that Jamaican rum in particular is like known for the funkiness of the rum. Like people like to use it in cocktails a lot because it has such a funky character to it. And I think when you really dig into this one, I'm not sure if it's the Islay Scotch influence or the Jamaican rum, but that, like you said, butterscotch. And I think that's a really good note because there's definitely some saline forward notes in here. That's not just butterscotch, but like salted butter. And the more I pushed into that, the more I was like, there's something behind this sweetness that's like, I can't tell if it's like garlicky or oniony or like there's a savory note here underneath all the layers of vanilla. And I got coconut on this. Like, it's just really good and really funky. And I know I sound like I'm describing like the worst mashup of food ever right now, but it's freaking intriguing, man. And I'm about to take a sip. Brad, give your tasting notes because I'm excited to dive in.
Yeah, man, this is delicious whiskey. So the first offering we had is like really solid. I enjoyed it. This is back to the barrel that I know and love.
Yep.
I got all sorts of butterscotch, buttercream. I liked your note of salted butter. That really came through strong. It's fruity. The smoke kind of disappears a little bit for me here, but the overall flavor is just this explosion of tropical, delicious, sugary everything.
I have never had this on a whiskey before, and I'm sure I'm going to sound like a crazy person, but it reminds me of eating a salad with like, craisins or something in it and a vinaigrette, but it also has like green onion or leek or something in it. Like there is just an oniony note to this that is freaking fascinating. I can't get over it. There's a funk to it. And it's more of like that oniony, gym sock funk than it is like the rose petal funk of Willet. And Brad, as a guy who does not like eating onions, I will say I am here for it. This is just, man, this is what I love about Barrell. They find flavors to mash together that you never would have thought. And you come out the other side being like, that was phenomenal. Like this is a huge step up from the Foundation. And if I can speak freely, I liked the Foundation fine. This is like stamp of approval right here.
Yes, 100%. Barrell, our hats are off. My Barrell hat that I purchased at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, I have now taken off due to your excellence at blending whiskeys.
Thank you for your oniony whiskey. And Brad, let's get back into the bracket. What do you say?
Let's get to it. Now we are moving into our Northeast bracket, which I am going to call the Cary Grant bracket.
Oh, that transatlantic thing.
I feel like if you're going to have a transatlantic accent, you have to be from like New Hampshire, the Massachusetts,
Sure.
the islands.
I figured it was either going to be
from.
that or like the Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Southie Boston bracket.
Oh, actually, it could be the Mark Wahlberg bracket.
There it is. Let's do that. The Wahlberg bracket.
All right. So we are up in the Wahlberg bracket with our number 2 overall seed, William Wyler's The Best Years of Our Lives, going against Billy Wilder's Sunset Boulevard.
And the thing is, that seed is number 31, folks, if you didn't realize that already. Sunset Boulevard is one of the most acclaimed movies of all time, and it is a movie that has just never fully worked for me. I like it, it's good. There are parts of it that are devastating, and like that final sequence with Norma Desmond completely losing her mind is just very affecting. The movie as a whole doesn't hang together for me the way it apparently does for most people. And I'm at least very grateful for you, Brad, that you're united with me in that opinion, because we both rated it pretty low among this season's movies.
Yeah, I would say that Sunset Boulevard might be my lowest ranked movie. I want to say that I put it at 31 or 32. I was very unimpressed with Sunset Boulevard. It just felt so mean without any real reason for the meanness or anything redeeming. It just felt caustic. And I did not like that. Mm-hmm. It was not my cup of tea.
Caustic is a good word. Meanwhile, The Best Years of Our Lives shines a very harsh light on the realities of soldiers returning from war, but it has a great big old heart. And Brad and I are softies. And so I think, Brad, without much more discussion, that is moving on here, right?
100%.
That takes us to the next matchup, the 15-seed Roman Holiday versus the 18-seed Mystic River. Mystic River being a movie that I remember really loving and coming in being like, it's better than $1 Million Baby. And then to your point earlier, we rewatched $1 Million Baby, and I was like, oh, absolutely not. That movie's so much better than Mystic River. I'm surprised to see it this high, Brad. Did you have it ranked highly?
I want to say it was in like the 12 to 15 area.
You had it at number 11.
Okay.
You had Roman Holiday at 15. And I'm wondering, because I remember you really liking Roman Holiday. Is it just because we ended up being big fans of Sabrina that Roman Holiday sank in your estimation?
I think so. I think Sabrina was just a masterpiece of how to bring Audrey Hepburn to the silver screen. I think Roman Holiday was really fun, but I need to watch it again to kind of get the taste of Cary Grant out of my mouth. But like the whole film, I just sat there and I was like, oh, this should be Cary Grant. It'd be so much better with Cary Grant. And I think I walked away thinking like, yep, really fun, really nice little romantic comedy that Cary Grant should have been in.
Mm-hmm. I still think it moves on here. I think it's a better movie than Mystic River. I don't know what you picked.
I actually picked Mystic River to move on here.
Okay. Well,
yeah, and I will say, Audrey Hepburn's my girl.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have had a crush on her since I was like 10 years old watching Charade.
Mm-hmm.
So this genuinely was a difficult pick for me, but I really liked Mystic River. The more we moved on from it, the more I think that it was a really beautifully sad film that it worked for me. So I did choose for it to go on here.
I don't really care at all what wins this matchup because I think it's going to get freaking slaughtered in the next round. But for the clicks, for the downloads, let's flip this freaking coin, man. Roman Holiday against Mystic River. We'll do Roman Holiday heads, Mystic River tails. Brad, flip that coin.
Bob? Roman Holiday is moving on.
All right. Roman Holiday is awaiting its fate in the next round. As we move on to the next matchup, the number 10 seed High and Low up against the number 23 seed Stalag 17. Stalag 17, good movie, tonally kind of a mess. Like, it's a comedy, and then it's really serious.
Like, super serious.
And it's also one of those movies that, like, I'm looking at the name of the movie, and every single time I see it, every time I glance over at this sheet next to us, Brad, I forget that we watched that movie. Like, it is just...
Yes.
I don't want to call it a forgettable movie because it was good. And, like, once I think about it, there were good scenes. I can remember moments. I just, like... I look at it and I was like, oh my gosh, we watched that this season?
Mm-hmm. I mean, we did watch it very early in the season, and I think there's a few movies kind of like that where you're like, yeah, you know, that one didn't stick with me quite as well. Here's the thing, man. When I look at Stalag 17, I think that it sounds like a German impressionistic, like, foreign film. Like, for some reason, the fact that there's a number in there just totally throws me off. I don't remember a ton about that movie. And I really liked High and Low. And I will say this, Bob. I think I was a little bit cool on High and Low when we recorded. But the more I sit down and, like, reflect on the season, I really liked High and Low.
That's a damn good movie, dude. And
it's such a good movie.
It's so contemporary, too. Like, it plays in 2023 so well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it moves on really easily for me.
Yes, same here.
And similarly, our number 7 overall seed, Paths of Glory, up against the 26 seed Zero Dark 30. Once again, a movie that I loved Zero Dark 30 when it came out. And I watched it back again, and I was like, man, this does not work the way I thought it did 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Paths of Glory was also a movie that, like, was in my top 50 of all time or something. And I watched it again this time, and I thought, all right, this might be like a 9.5 instead of a 10. But it is still, to me, leaps and bounds better than Zero Dark 30.
Yeah. Yeah, I would not want to get caught holding the collar for Zero Dark 30 here. So it's pretty easy for me to move Paths of Glory on. And I'm sure we'll talk about Paths of Glory more because what a beautiful film.
All right. That takes us into our southeast quadrant. Brad, what's the name here?
I feel like Adam Sandler is the most Florida man actor that we have.
The Bobby Boucher.
The Bobby Boucher bracket.
All right. What's our first matchup in the Boucher region?
Our first matchup is the number 3 seed, the aforementioned Sabrina, versus number 30 Point Break. Bob, you did not remember that we watched Stalag 17. I did not remember a thing about Point Break. I legitimately had to look it up.
I am an FBI agent. Not only, okay, seriously, Point Break might be for me the worst movie we watched this year. And it's fine and it's fun.
Yeah.
What I'm most impressed by is I'm going to pat myself on the back a little bit. When we recorded the Sabrina episode, I spent the entire episode trying to convince you, Brad, this is like a perfect movie. And you were like, yeah, Bob, this is really, really good. And I'm not going to stand in your way because I have nothing but positive things to say. It's not a 10 out of 10. And then I looked over your sheet, Brad, and it is really highly ranked on your sheet. So it seems like another one that crept up on you as you reevaluated.
Yeah. I think that when I took a full look at the entire list, my nostalgia kicked in a little bit because I've been watching that movie since I was a kid. And just thinking through all the performances, I think Sabrina holds up incredibly well. It is such a beautifully charming and fun movie, and it might be Audrey at her peak. So I easily, this might have been the easiest choice, like even easier than Ikiru over Notorious. Like Point Break is so ridiculous. Like I can't believe we watched that movie, Bob. I'm glad we did. It was a fun film to watch, but man, oh man, I guess I'll say this. It is the least like all of the other 31 films of any film in this season.
Oh, for sure. All right, so Sabrina's moving on. That takes us to one of the more challenging matchups for me personally, the 14 seed Dr. Strangelove up against the 19 seed The 39 Steps. Strangelove is a movie that I had like moderate respect for, and then watched it this time and I was like, oh, this was 50 years ahead of its time, and it works amazingly until the last 5 minutes, and I feel like it kind of falls apart. 39 Steps is a movie that I'm like, oh, this was also 50 years ahead of its time, but it was made in the 1930s. You know what I mean? So like, it does still feel a little bit antiquated. I'm shocked at how quickly it moved for me. I know that you were not as high on 39 Steps as I was.
Meh.
So I guess I'm asking, like, I'm assuming you moved Strangelove on here. Is Strangelove really a contender for you, or like, where are you falling on that movie generally?
Strangelove was fun. It was entertaining. It definitely made me laugh. I wouldn't call it a contender.
So it seems like it is a lamb to the slaughter for Sabrina in the next round. But
yeah, a little bit.
I ultimately went with Strangelove here too. Like, I just think that it's really hard to make comedies that are that far ahead of their time. I think comedy is like often a prisoner of the moment. You know, if you go back and watch some of like the teen comedies from when we were growing up, you watch them today, you're like, wow, this aged poorly really quickly. So to be that far ahead of its time just by itself, and you take all the Stanley Kubrick out of it, I think that's commendable in itself. So Strangelove moves on for me here.
Yeah, and that brings us to the penultimate matchup of our first round. Modern Times, our number 11 seed, versus The Shining, our number 22 seed.
I respect The Shining. I don't like The Shining, bro. Like, I just like
Bob, you just had the snootiest nasally voice I've ever heard you have.
It's just, at the end of the day, there's certain things that I realize that I just don't have enough logical reasons to like convince somebody. And I think a sign of just growing up is being like, at the end of the day, it's just not my cup of tea.
I know me.
You know what I mean?
I know what I like.
It's
I
a
know what I
good
don't
movie.
like. Yeah.
And I think it's well made, and I don't dislike watching it. It's just like Modern Times is better, and I will pick that 100 times out of 100.
Yeah. I mean, Shining was worthwhile for the fact that I now understand the Jack Nicholson freezing meme. It's a great gif of a really terrible practical effects shot.
I mean, could they have picked any other facial expression to have him die in? He has like the underbite that Leo does in The Wolf of Wall Street.
That's a good comparison, man.
All right, that takes us to our last matchup. The number 6 seed, Unforgiven, up against the number 27 seed, The Great Dictator. At the end of last week, Brad, you said that you thought Unforgiven would be the dark horse in this bracket because I am such a champion for it. Mm-hmm. I never expected to be. And I think the most miraculous thing about Unforgiven as a movie is it has a very slow setup. And when the turn happens that, whatever his name is, Will Money, decides to re-engage in violence and accepts his fate that he can't ever do anything else.
Yep.
It's such a mournful, tragic movie. Like, I think I said in the episode, I could have spent the last hour or 40 minutes or whatever of that movie just crying because it's like, there's nothing to glorify in it. And it's just, I think it might be Eastwood's best movie. It's so freaking good, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful film, beautifully shot, beautiful acting, beautiful story. And it's really sad and it moves you in an incredible way. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm with you, man. Unforgiven moves on. We have to give Great Dictator its due. Like, we just did an interview with Scott Eyman, who literally wrote the book on Charlie Chaplin, and The Great Dictator plays such an important role in Chaplin's life. It really set the stage for a lot of unfortunate things to come. But man, oh man, what a movie.
All right, so our last 8 entrants into the round of 16 are The Best Years of Our Lives, Roman Holiday, High and Low, Paths of Glory, Sabrina, Dr. Strangelove, Modern Times, and Unforgiven. And Brad, that might be the most solid list of 8 movies we've ever had come out. Like,
yeah,
really, really good movies. I'm kind of nervous to see what happens in the next round, but before we get there, we have one more whiskey to try today. What do you say we get to it?
Let's get to it, man.
All right, so our final whiskey of the day is the Barrel Cask Finish Series Amburana. If you are a whiskey person that's chronically online, then the Amburana craze has come and gone for you. This is a specific type of wood. I think it's an oak tree that's grown primarily in Japan. I should have researched this before we started recording, Brad. But they've been finishing barrels in it for a number of years now, and a lot of different companies are doing it. It kind of exploded on the scene a few years ago. And, as people do when they want the newest, cutting edge thing, everyone's turned against it now.
Yeah. Also, fun fact, native country of Brazil.
Brazil. Oh, wow. I was way off. Don't take my word for anything, folks. So anyway, we had not ever tried an Amburana product on this show until today. I don't think we ever drank an Amburana Finished anything together until we went to the Kentucky Bourbon Festival this year, and we tried 2 or 3 of them. There was one from Nulu that was like really heavily Amburana in flavor. Yeah. What I love about this is it reminds me of, I don't think it's honeysuckle. There's a very specific plant that grows wild in these parts, Brad, in the summertime, and it has that sweet, like it might be goldenrod. I'm not sure. Like there's just a sweet pollen-y smell to it. And it reminds me of summer, and I love it to death. It's one of my favorite scents in the world. Amburana Finishes have it on it in spades. And just getting into the nose here, it has it again, and I'm in love.
Yeah, 100%, man. It is a really delicate floral nose that has that foundation of like caramel, brown sugar, vanilla that you want. Mm-hmm. But all of this floral nonsense going on above it that's really, really nice.
They offer tasting notes on these little cards they provided to us from the manufacturer, and they mentioned goldenrod and then honeycomb. I don't know that it reminds me of real life honeycomb so much, but it does remind me a little bit of, do you remember honeycomb cereal from when we were kids? That stuff, first of all, freaking slapped. But it has that like, almost like there's a wheat character underneath it as well. And once again, there's no wheat in the mash bill here, but it has that soft floralness to it. I'm salivating, Brad. I'm going to take a sip while you give your tasting notes.
Yeah, this really does remind me of like a honey that you buy locally at like your farmer's market. It's got a really nice floral palate, but the sweetness of that honey flavor keeps me interested. I will say, I wish there was a little more depth on this. I think it leans into the light territory a little too much. And there's not that depth and richness of experience that I get with a lot of other barrel products.
It's so heavily floral. Like it has that honey and whatever that plant is. I'm going to just assume it's goldenrod at this point. And it's like inhaling pollen. And then I'm with you though. The issue for me is like, if I could draw a horizontal line across the middle of my tongue, there's like a flavor explosion on the front and mid palate. And then there's like nothing else behind it. It's a lot of alcohol and ethanol too. And it almost like numbs your palate a little bit, but there's nothing on the back end. And it's just like a very pleasant floral finish, but there's not a lot of depth to it. And yet there's a part of me that's like, Bob, this is like a 50 out of 50 whiskey. That this is like your ideal whiskey. I don't know how to explain it, dude. This hits like everything that I wish I could put into like a candle to burn is like here in the flavor of this whiskey. I freaking love this. I know it's not going to be for everybody. I know that objectively this is not a 50 out of 50 whiskey, but there's a part of me that just wants to cross my arms and stamp my feet and be like, yeah, it is. This is a perfect whiskey.
Does it taste like a father and son restoring a good relationship at the end of a movie?
It sure does. In a golden hued sunset. Ooh.
Are they in a field full of goldenrod?
Bro, it's like that scene where Russell Crowe is like touching the tops of the wheat in the field.
Oh, dude. Yeah, dude.
But shot by Terrence Malick, That's where I'm at on this. It's so good, Brad.
Yeah, honestly, Bob, as much as I complained about the palate, the flavor that it leaves on my tongue is so unique in the world of whiskey. I don't know if I've ever had anything like it. And let me tell you, I really like it. So this is an incredible product. It's going to take you by surprise. It's not something that you would expect out of Barrell for how rich most of their whiskeys are. But I think that alone makes it worth buying.
All right, man. We have ended on a high note. It's time to get back into this round of 16 and narrow it down to 8 before we get out of here for the day. All right, so back into the Northwest quadrant at the Tom Cruise quadrant. I don't know. Whatever.
Obviously.
All right, we've got Ikiru up against Ron. Now, Ikiru is our number 1 overall seed. Brad, I don't want to be that guy, but I am probably going to. And here's the only reason why. I think that both of these movies are totally deserving of a spot in the round of 8. I have Ron as my 4th ranked movie on the season. I have Ikiru as my 8th ranked movie of the season. They're both that's the thing is like it's just a couple degrees difference, but I didn't even consider either of these against each other because I had Rashomon going all the way to the round of 8 here. So now that I think about like Ikiru or Ron, I don't know which one to pick. Ikiru, I remember us saying is like at least 20 minutes too long, and that's the same thing we said about Ron. And
bro, Ron's like 45 minutes too long.
I really like
That's
Ron,
a long
man. That movie
man.
worked. Talk about another tragedy on the level of like Unforgiven. Like this is straight Shakespeare, and just the color and the choreography of the fights. And I'm moving Ron on here, man. I am.
Oh, go home, Bob. Ron does not move on over Ikiru.
Listen,
Ikiru is the most beautiful movie we've watched all season.
I don't know about that, man. Rashomon.
The rash, man.
How much am I going to mess up your personal bracket if Ikiru gets knocked out here?
It's not going to get knocked out. The coin of the destiny is on my side, Bob.
All right, man. Let's flip that coin. We've got Ikiru as heads, Ron as tails. Brad, go ahead, flip the coin.
Bob. Ron is not a good movie. At all. It doesn't deserve to move on.
But
it's moving on.
Oh, man. All right, so now tell me, how much did I mess up your bracket?
Enough that I am going to pick against you the rest of the rest of the season.
All right, well, that takes us to our next matchup, which is City Lights up against the Prestige. I think I'm more interested to hear your pick here because I'm kind of like, all right, City Lights moves on, but then I forget that you didn't really love City Lights that much. So did you pick the Prestige here?
Obviously.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, no, this isn't me messing with you. I very clearly chose Prestige over City Lights. City Lights is fine. It was a decent movie. Prestige is just awesome. I think it is one of Nolan's best films. And like, I know you're not a Nolan bro, but you have to agree that Nolan is an incredible director.
Oh, 100%.
And I think Prestige is up there. So yeah, this was honestly an easy choice for me.
It was an easy choice for me in the complete opposite direction, too. That's like, I probably spent a second and a half thinking about this matchup. And that's what I love about this podcast, because we're probably going to knock out one of the most highly regarded movies of all time in favor of the Nolan bros. But Brad, City Lights is going... Wait, which one's the higher ranked? Let's see.
Prestige is one rank higher.
Prestige is the 8 seed. City Lights is the 9 seed. So Prestige will be heads. City Lights will be tails. Brad, flip the coin.
Which one was tails?
City Lights.
City Lights moves on, Bob.
Wow. Now, Brad, this has been a rough round of 16 for you so far. Which means that
my bracket winner got knocked out.
Yeah, this is why you don't pick Pitt to win in the March Madness every year. Pitt is one of those teams that gets knocked out in the second round every year.
Yeah.
All right, we're down to Rope versus the Gold Rush. For me, this was another one that was like a no-brainer because the Gold Rush, not my favorite Chaplin, so I picked Rope to move on. Where did you land?
I picked the Gold Rush to move on, Bob.
We might have like 8 consecutive coin flips here, Brad.
Yeah, we sure might. I genuinely picked the Gold Rush to move on. I think that I just decided. I was like, I like Dial M for Murder more.
Mm-hmm.
And Charlie Chaplin is one of the most famous actors and directors of all time. I'm going to move the Gold Rush on because for me, it was my absolute favorite of the Chaplins. And it had, I would put a top 5 still from a movie that I've ever seen in my life.
100%.
And that was enough for me to move it on past Rope.
You know, I had a similar thing in later rounds where I was like, I like Rope better than Dial M. And so I picked something else to move on over Dial M for Murder. So I understand the impulse here, but we are once again at a standstill until you flip the coin of destiny. So Rope is heads, the Gold Rush is tails. Flip the coin.
Damn it, Bob. This is a disappointing turn of events. Rope is moving on.
Man, this is why you don't call destiny down on your side, man. You can't. This is not Babe Ruth. You don't get to call your shot here, man.
Don't worry, Bob. Your time is coming.
I'm sure it is. And our last matchup on this half of the bracket is the number 12 seed, 7 Samurai, up against the number 5 seed, Dial M for Murder. Now, Brad, this is a hard one for me. I think these are both really good movies. I think Dial M for Murder is obviously like the more fun movie. Yeah. 7 Samurai has the weight of like cinema history on its side.
Yep.
Was this a hard pick at all for you, or was it pretty easy?
It was a difficult pick. I really liked 7 Samurai. Bob, I think I gave it a 9 or a 9.5. Like, I'm a big 7 Samurai fan. That is a movie. If I wanted to show, like, certain friends of mine, I'm like, oh, I could watch 7 Samurai with them, and I think they'd really enjoy it. The fact that it came out so long ago, is completely in Japanese, and is in black and white, and I still am like, yeah, I know people who would like watching this, is a testament to what a great movie it is. But I moved Dial M for Murder on.
And I moved 7 Samurai on. And this is the first time in film and whiskey history that we have had 4 consecutive coin flips. Like, I am shocked, dude. The only time that we've had something even approaching this is when we had a coin flip a couple seasons in a row for the champion.
Yes, we did. Yeah.
So, all right. I'm also worried that the listeners are going to be getting sick of the sound effect for flip that coin. Should I just insert like the Benny Hill theme at this point? Like, should we pick something else for the coin flip?
I think so. Yes.
I mean, it is working for me so far.
Yeah, we'll see, man. Dial M, now that Ikiru is out, that could do some damage in my updated bracket.
I'm okay with Dial M moving on if it does. So that will be heads as the 5 seed. 7 Samurai is going to be tails as the 12 seed. Brad, with a new sound effect, flip that coin.
Bob, 7 Samurai is moving on.
Oh my gosh. I have never... Wow. I won't say anything else. Let's move on. We're going to the right half of the bracket now, where the number 2 seed, The Best Years of Our Lives, is going up against Roman Holiday, the 15 seed. This did not take me very long, Brad. I think that The Best Years of Our Lives just moves on here.
Yeah, I think that Roman Holiday has a lot of merits, Bob. I think that it's an easy choice over Best Years of Our Lives. Obviously.
Well, that didn't take much, did it? All right.
Yeah, Best Years of Our Lives is an incredible film. It's so good, man. As much as I would like to be the spoiler role here, yeah, I moved Best Years on. I moved it on over Mystic River. Obviously, I'm going to move it on over Roman Holiday.
Would you like to take us to our next matchup here?
Yeah, so we are moving down to High and Low versus our number 10 seed versus Paths of Glory, our number 7 seed.
This was a harder one for me, too. Paths of Glory, not quite as great as I remember. Like, I mean, really great movie. I don't know that I'd give it a 10 anymore.
Right.
High and Low, a movie that I had like pretty much forgotten about, also really solid.
Yeah.
I still think Paths of Glory is probably, on the whole, the better movie, but I could be swayed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Bob, I'm just going to show my cards here. I moved High and Low on.
Oh, nice.
I think that High and Low is just sneakily one of the best films we watched this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think that initially I wasn't certain about the setup of, the first 30, 40 minutes of the film being in one room, essentially, and then the rest of it being a detective chase thriller. But man, oh man, once the movie was over and I really took time to reflect on it, I really loved High and Low. I think Paths of Glory is the best movie to put up against it because I loved Paths of Glory as well.
Mm-hmm.
So this might have been the probably third or fourth hardest decision of my bracket.
Yeah, it was a hard one. And I'm actually I'm really glad that we get to flip the coin here because I think sometimes that's the best way to honor how good a movie was is to put it in Destiny's hands. So we're going to say Paths of Glory is heads as the 7 seed. High and Low is tails. Brad, flip that coin.
That's Paths of Glory, Bob.
Wow. Okay. So we have had coin flips on 5 of our first 6 picks here. And that leaves 2 more. We're moving down into the lower right quadrant where we have the 3 seed Sabrina.
The Bobby Boucher
The Boucher region. Where we have Sabrina, the 3 seed, up against Dr. Strangelove, the 14 seed. Strangelove, a movie that I appreciate more than I thought I would. It is no Sabrina, Brad.
No, it's not. Strangelove was a lot of fun. Sabrina is incredible.
There's sometimes where I wish that I was a more famous movie critic so that I could write one of those pieces that gets people starting to reappraise a movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. Why isn't Sabrina considered one of the best, not only Billy Wilder movies, but just romantic comedies? It's so good.
I don't know. It's incredible.
It's a perfect
people
movie.
Need to watch it. Yeah. Yeah. Sabrina needs to move on. My soul needs a little clemency, I think.
A salve. Okay, we have one more matchup. It's Modern Times, the 11 seed, up against Unforgiven, the 6 seed. This was really hard for me. Modern Times is probably my personal favorite Chaplin movie. I think if I was forced at gunpoint to choose one Chaplin movie to put in the vault for future generations, I'd probably pick City Lights even over Modern Times, even though I like Modern Times more. And because of that, I picked Unforgiven to move on here.
Bob, we are finally in lockstep. I also picked Unforgiven to move on.
Anything you'd like to say to Modern Times as we send it off into the machinery of doom?
I don't remember much about it.
Well, I guess that does it then, huh?
Yeah, that's it for me, man. I hate to say it, Bob. Chaplin just didn't make much of an impression on me.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. I do know that you had a really rough round of 16, man, when it comes to your movies getting into the next round, because here's our final 8 films, Brad. Ron, City Lights, Rope, 7 Samurai, The Best Years of Our Lives, Paths of Glory, Sabrina, and Unforgiven. And I think
5 of my 8 have been eliminated.
That's the thing. And when it comes to Ron, that wasn't my pick for this. That wasn't your pick for this. So it's all right, is it just going to get annihilated by City Lights in the next round? Because you didn't like City Lights either. I think there's a lot of intrigue here. We're not necessarily happy about some of these picks, but that's what makes the bracket episodes so interesting.
Bob, Ikiru is the best film on this bracket. I will
what
stump
movie?
for that movie.
What movie?
Ikiru. Akira Kurosawa. I don't know if you've heard of him.
I know. I feel like that movie's
peasant.
been thrown into the fire and that it doesn't.
Peasant that you are in the world of film. You wouldn't understand the beauty.
Huh.
It's okay, Bob. You'll reach that level someday.
I'll get my comeuppance next time through, Brad, because we're coming back on our next episode to finish out this bracket. We'll take this all the way down to the champion of season 7, and we have a very special whiskey planned for our last episode of season 7. But that does it for us today. So join us next time as we continue to argue with each other and drink great whiskey. For the Film and Whiskey Podcast, I'm Bob Book.
I'm Brad G.
And we'll see you next time.